Hi, everyone. My guest this time is Tim Schneidermeier. For more than 10 years, Tim is enthusiastic about discovering, understanding, and translating human needs into innovative products, services, and great experiences. Currently working as Director Human-Centered Innovation at Different, a strategy agency, design strategy agency. He is leading a multidisciplinary team for researchers, experience, and service designers to create value for customers and business alike. Hi, Tim. I'm so glad to have you here.
Hi, thanks for having me. My pleasure.
You started as one of the first in Germany in the field of user research while you studied computer sciences at the University of Regensburg, Germany. What motivates you? Why do you work in usability and research?
Well, that's a good question to start with, and I think especially coming from Germany, which is traditionally a very engineering focused country, so to speak, or known for its quality in engineering, it is most of the time it's about technological feasibility. But I was always curious about the human feasibility of things, so to speak. So how can human-machine interactions be designed in a way that it's easy to use, it's pleasurable, and you at the end is usable for the user, the customer, or the human itself. And this is like keeps me going ever since I started my career or my education in software ergonomics, usability, and so on and so forth.
So it's been a long time. And having now all those, let's say, researcher competitors in US or China, how do you see the human experience research in Germany compared maybe to the US or China? Or don't you care? It's just that you see it's how it's like in Germany.
No, I think like there's especially nowadays, there is like a huge network of researchers worldwide that work together, that share experiences, that interact with each other. So I think like there's no knowledge gap, or so to speak, of in different countries or different continents, but an ever like growing scene. I think like for one example would be like the topic of research operations or research ops, which is like increased dramatically over the last 2 years and gained like international attention and a huge LinkedIn group, and for how do you where different people from different countries like talk to each other and exchange their experience, like how to implement, how to scale research in their companies in their countries. So I think like speaking from a maturity level kind of perspective, I think this is like almost comparable. I think. I mean, I'm not an expert in the UX scene in Asia or in the US, but really focusing my career in Germany and Europe. I did some projects in the US as well as in China, and there is like I love working with international colleagues, and I don't see any bigger differences there. To be honest, of course, it would be like good thing like to see that from an enterprise kind of perspective, meaning that how is the maturity level within these organizations? And like my guess would be, or my educated guess would be, that it's like the scene here in Germany, meaning that you have different enterprises where they have a high UX or research maturity, like speaking in Germany or in Berlin, even speaking Zalando, for example, is like one of them, which like really integrated research from the first day on. And then you have medium-sized enterprises, which really like have new challenges, especially like after the pandemic, which is obviously taking a lot of our time nowadays. Like they have to get like really kickstart the digital transformation for some of them very good, and then they are focusing now basically like what UX can do, or UX or experience design. The term I like much more than UX. can do for them.
You said something about research operations or research ops. Your latest study you did at USeeds, which is actually the UX and usability agency you worked for. There's a study called UX Research from Hermit to Integral Part of the Company, a four-field approach for the practical implementation of research operations. A really long headline, yes, that describes the need of a fully implemented research unit within companies, just like the IT, HR, or sales. Is it that? Why is it important to have a research operations within a company?
Well, that's a good question. Maybe just to start with, I'm sorry for this long title. I really like it, and that's my academic heritage, because I used to work in academics in R&D, and also like teaching UX and usability for about 5 years at the university. And first of all, like if you start with this paper, I also have to mention my dear colleague Sonja Wilczek, which is like the brain behind all the research operations, and she's the one like really like implemented that in different clients. We put that together. So she's the one with kudos at this stage to her. But coming back to operations, like, well, as you said, IT, design, or DevOps operations always coming up when you are at a point in your maturity where you got more demand than you can supply, right? So meaning that if you are the head of UX research, for example, in a company, and more people getting to know the benefits of, or even like want to embrace UX research in their projects, they will come with a lot of questions, a lot of demands to you, and you have to prioritize. Then it's like the first time you see like, well, I cannot do the operational part, I cannot do the strategic part, and the ops part all by myself. So I need like a kind of a team. And once the research team grows. And from my perspective, from my experience, we would say like if the team like is more than 3 or 4 researchers with a lead researcher, operations make a lot of sense. Operations meaning it's a huge framework that you guys can Google. I mean, there's lots and lots of things to operations, but for the time being here, I want to make it like really focus on the nucleus, which for me is like all the things you have to do, which is not research itself, meaning like taking care of participants, taking care of making appointments with them, taking care of data privacy issues, which is huge for UX research. And I'm really happy that we have a lot of experts and like even a big task force since more than 3 years now, just tackling the data issue, because it's a huge way always when you work with personalized data, which has to be anonymized or etc. You guys know what I'm talking about. So operations helps you to focus on the research work while everything else is taken care of, and also you have the chance that you create win-win situations, because if you have to write interview guidelines, if you have to write screeners to recruit the participants, you of course then if it's a centralized position, for example, a research ops manager, they can reuse a lot of information they already created, and they will be much more efficient. And in that way, you can tackle more research demand. That's like the one side. The other side is also if you what we also came up with based on the experience of about 10 years of research and doing that, like in the eBay cosmos, doing that in the automotive industry in Germany, is when always you start, you have like about 4 dimensions you have to tackle in the research field, which is about, you have to take care about scaling, which I just talked about. You have to talk about establishment of research, which is a lot about how to communicate, how to get stakeholder buy-in, because if you have stakeholder buy-in, obviously you get probably you can get more financing of your research, which is essential to grow. You can also you're able excuse me, to strengthen your research capabilities. Like, of course, you have to be up to date and up to speed all the time about methodologies, but also train, get more people trained that you can scale again in your company. And then it's about integration of UX or UX research, meaning integration into where you need a strategy that you're able to to align with the company strategy. Because at the end, research or any experience kind of design can always is there to align with is there to align with the company strategy, so that both the company as well as the department or horizontal always work together to get out the most value for their customers and their business, because that's how it works.
You said you need to sell the value of experience design or research, user research, to business stakeholders. How do you do that?
I think the biggest challenge or the biggest asset you need for that is speaking the same language. So whenever you want to create business value or talk to the business people, and as I'm in the field for quite some time, at the beginning, all the field of UX and experiences, I was fighting to be able to sit on the table with the business decision makers, right? So since a couple of years, it's completely normal that we do, and now we have to talk. If we speak about business, we have to speak business. So we have to know their language, and as most researchers are very empathetic. That's the basis for being researcher and quite curious about people. You can use this kind of knowledge, this kind of mindset as well, of course, for speaking with internal stakeholders, right? Because it's always, again, their understanding their needs and their goals, and to help them reach them. And once they see that you're gonna help them reach their goals, you create value for them.
So you don't have a specific formula or KPI that business stakeholders, decision makers need to know in terms of research?
Well, it depends, to be honest. I mean, it always, as I said before, the company or the company strategy, the company KPI system creates the play field of where you play as well as if you join the company. So meaning that if you're gonna support different departments within the company, you have to understand their exact KPIs, and then you have to derive the UX KPIs you can use to help them. And of course, I mean, there are two kinds of KPIs. You have the behavioral ones and you have the attitudinal ones. Where one is you can measure, and the other one is typically via surveys. And of course, what all the companies usually do is at least they curate an NPS survey every quarter or some things. And actually, to be honest, I like the NPS because it's at least some kind of touch point where you see if the measures you undertook go in the right direction or in the wrong direction. Of course, it doesn't help to get qualitative insights where what went good and what went wrong. But I mean, that's at the end, it always really comes down to understanding the stakeholders and their KPIs, and then see from your UX KPI frameworks, and there are a lot of them out there, what you can use and also able to communicate the value of the research, which is
Sorry, go ahead. Just for the audience, an NPS is Net Promoter Score. How has it changed that NPS is used in research and UX? I know that 10 years ago, it was probably a new term at all. Now, the user experience teams of some companies take it or use it. do you see that there's a change as well using NPS?
Well, I mean, I hope I'm right. I'm not sure, but I think the NPS is around since the 70s or something. So it's a really, really old measurement.
Yeah, it is.
And it's a quite easy measurement. It's like about how likely are you to ask your friends like to use this service or product on a scale from 0 to 10. So that's basically quite easy, and always gives you like a feedback and a glimpse of time after you had a specific experience on the website, with the product, with the brand itself. I don't want to make it too bright now, but just try to answer the question. So in my experience, the NPS typically actually isn't owned by the UX team, but it's owned by marketing. So they use it. I see like a revival of the NPS like 3 years ago. There were a lot of like blog posts out there. So the NPS is dead. Long live the NPS. And I think everybody will agree that it has like pro sides and con sides. But if you don't do anything, please just use the NPS because it's so easy to use, and at least you get some like over the time passing. You see, like you can combine the insights from the NPS with other insights you create within UX research or within market research or customer insights and the data you create from your company, and see like how all this belongs together. After like a year, you see like curves and everything, and then you can like do deep dives in the right experience gaps.
So NPS, in terms of research methods, what other methods or tools, research tools, do you recommend?
I think like again, if you look at the maturity levels, I mean, to make it really easy for myself is like there's two kind of UX research or product research, and this is explorative and evaluative. So the one thing is like how can we, from a customer perspective, identify new business opportunities and like getting to know a new field. For example, I don't know, let's say smart homes. I think maybe we're going to talk about it later anyways. It's something like you have to explore a lot, like what is out there, like what are the needs, what are the jobs to be done from a customer's perspective. And then you have the evaluative part, which means there's already a prototype, there's wireframes or even a functional product. And then you gather qualitative or quantitative feedback from your customer user base in order to be able to continuously improve this kind of product. So these are like the two things you gotta tackle. And of course, I mean, everybody has like their favorite methods. So I think for my favorite method, back then when I did operative research, I always liked shadowing a lot because like when you really like accompany a user or a customer on their maybe daily journey or task journey, however you define it, of course, in the environment you wanna create insights, and then you don't have you're focusing not only on what people say or answer to your questions, but you can also like see what they are doing, see how they are behaving, and that is like much more the part to be a really good researcher. Your job is not to like analyze a survey and saying, well, 59% said this is great, and the other said it's well, I don't know, and the third part say, well, it sucks. But it's really like to be able to transfer the insights you create and like really the behavior of customers, of users into actionable recommendations. So it's like really the analysis of things. It takes much more time than actually creating the insights, because you have to identify patterns. You have to see, are these patterns existing for specific user segments, or is it an overall pattern? So where should I do another deep dive? Where do we even have to do another research method to be sure that we're safe here? Because at the end, research is all about risk minimization, right? It's always like you have like a way where you want to go, a vision, whatever, And on this way, you want to be sure that you always stay on the path. Of course, you can go left or right, but always like iteratively manage to get feedback. And sometimes then you just like say, okay, well, it's the completely wrong way. We have to go another way. But still, this is, in my opinion, research. And I'm sorry, I kind of changed your question from the methods to a more broader view, but I think it's like just like, one into the other. And of course, like this was like for explorative, for evaluative, I think interviews, if they're done right, can be a fascinating source of information, insights. And this is like something like really I want to send a big watch out, because like too many, like it's like a very low hanging fruit, because a lot of people all of like humankind are able to ask questions and get answers. But this is not a professional UX interview, because in a UX interview, you really have to be trained in interview skills. You have to be sure you follow a guideline. You have to be sure that your results are valid and reliable, meaning that you can actually reproduce them, to be sure that you have to be sure to ask the right questions to get answers. And this is like a whole, that's why it's a profession, to be honest. Because for starters, everybody can start to ask questions. But if you have the chance to, there are a lot of books out there, just deep dive into there to get continuously improve your mechanics and methodology.
Oh yes, I know. If you ask the wrong questions, you get the answers you might don't want to have. So there's a lot of books about that. Well, maybe you said that one of the favorite methods is shadowing. Could you describe this just in one sentence to those who don't know what shadowing is?
Well, basically, it's quite easy, and the name is quite self-describing, because it means like you follow a user or a customer during his day and looking him over the shoulder. Like typically, it's of course like not going away from websites, but imagine you want to create or you want to identify new opportunities in the smart home environment. So you would visit different people at their home and just like follow them or accompany them through the whole day and see what are they doing, with whom or with what are they interacting, in what way, what pains do you see, what probably gains you can identify, and then of course document that. And there's like two ways. The one is just like really observe, and the other way is to observe and also ask questions. I prefer the later one, because whenever I did that, in most of the situations, it really appeared that you observed a certain behavior of the customer, and afterwards you are going to ask them like, well, I just observed this and that, so why was that? And a lot of times they were not aware of that thing. It's like because it was just so automatic. And this is, I think, like the great things you can discover. Or another thing is like once I did like a shadowing where we wanted to improve processes within a telecommunications company. And we were just following like different workers from different departments on their daily routine. And once they used, for example, the software, you see like, well, they wrote a lot of post-its. And then they're asking, why are you writing post-its? You have the software all here. Yeah, well, I have to remember this and that information. It's just like, I don't know, I cannot copy and paste it to the clipboard all the time, so I have to write it down. So, well, you see, okay, here's like a very low-hanging fruit that we have to implement such a functionality into the software.
Oh, that's a good example. And speaking of examples, you have one of your clients was Miele, the great manufacturer of household and commercial appliances in Germany. And Miele, like any other manufacturer, is currently facing rapid changes within the smart home sector or the IoT sector. What is the biggest challenge when designing new products at Miele or any other one?
Well, that's a good question. And yes, as you said, it's like Miele is a good example, but of course, there are a lot of other companies, and especially the ones that are creating physical goods, like home appliances, or even like in the industry, like other physical appliances. And they are all like still in this, what we like to call digital transformation. So, like coming from a business model where they used to manufacture and sell products, like it's like this one touch point, and maybe like you have customer care if something went wrong, but that's it. Coming into the 21st century where everything is digital, and you have to create new business models, usually typically digital business model around your product, meaning you're coming from like a product to probably a system. For example, like I think like a good metaphor is like just thinking of your house. You have like your oven, which is like one product. The oven is living in one system, which will, for example, be the kitchen. And then you have the kitchen, which is living in your house. So finally, you have like a system of systems. Like then you have your whole house, and then we're just talking about the house itself and not the mobility, which is around your workplace, etc. So everything is going to be connected. And meaning that you have, of course, like the first new kind of business models which were arriving everywhere is, of course, we kind of do that as a service, coming from the software as a service idea that you don't sell, but you like kind of get money you kind of have to spend like Netflix, spend money every month on something, and which is of course a lot of advantages and disadvantages at the same time. But that's like kind of the one kind of challenge, like Miele and other manufacturers, of course, are facing, like creating new business value around their products, and therefore you need a lot of insights. And the other one, of course, is where it's and this is but also true like for these established companies which have been around for 100 years, for 50 years, but also true, of course, for kind of startups or new players on the market, which also creating physical products and have to have a digital system around them, like also micromobility as Tier or Emmy or any other player facing the same solution. Now they are big in the sharing economy, but of course they need insights like how to expand that to create more value.
They are doing it right now. I think they have mobility stations right now, just published or launched. So they're moving on, and very quickly. In terms of IoT smart homes, what do you think are the next steps in design or research?
Well, I think like I had the chance and the honor to do some talks and some discussions in the last years, like within the smart home community. And I think now, is my opinion, is like it's always like the search for the killer use case. So you don't come from the killer application. Is like what coming from the smartphone market, or what is the killer application like, which is going to make a lot of money and a lot of customers really happy. And I'm afraid I don't know if there is this one killer application in the smart home business. At least there is not the one which is right for all customer segments, right? I mean, with smart home and like this new technologies, like of course voice is like really part of that. Adaptive systems which get to know you. I don't like the term smart too much, to be honest, because I would like to speak of connected homes, because smart means that they already did machine learning and they know you, which most of them don't. And to be honest, like not so many, like defining a smart home, not so many people have one. It's like most of us have so-called smart assistants at home, which is like the gateway drug they're designed to be gateway drug to start your smart home. Maybe we have Philips Hue, but that's it. But in order like to really have a smart home, which means like this, what I was speaking of, the systems of system integrates and talks to one another, is yet to be designed or yet to like be fulfilled in a broader business manner. But there are killer applications if you look at specific target groups. And this is, for example, like we're just making one example, is the idea that you can voice interact or voice control your washing machine may seem like a very convenience factor, right? And like, oh, what are we going to do with that? For people who are visually impaired, it's like a new experience they didn't have before, because once, like, they don't need a braille line or anything, but they really can talk to these devices and they can talk to each other, and you can create new experiences for them. And this is just like one example. So I think like one challenge and one opportunity lies in they're getting to know and even better understand like all human, like creating human experiences and like in a manner of an inclusive design approach. And then see for whom can we create completely new experiences with this new kind of technology, and for whom can we make it probably more convenient, because convenient is very good, which is for better or worse, like the measurement of humankind in the 21st century in our first world problems.
So we know that AI or machine learning is still, well, in development in such physical or smart home environments. What do you think will happen in the next years within AI or machine learning and impacts the industry? And does it mean that researchers are still needed, or are robots doing those machines, washing machine, creating one, communication is already in development, is almost very good, I'd say. What do you think?
Well, yeah, I'm happy to share my thoughts, but like, of course, like a prerequisite, I'm not an AI expert. Of course, like it touches my field, so that's where I come across all this technology, and having like a background in media informatics, I kind of like to play around with new technologies, but I'm not an expert. So this is just like to frame my answer. But yes, I mean, there are a lot of different points in your question. Like starting with, I like to start with the robot kind of thing, because this is something like I did some projects with, and I really like them. Like a robot they are already existing, and they're like cleaning our flats and houses, like the vacuum robots, right? So this is like may sound like, well, not nothing big, but actually it is, because it is the first device which is like is moving around in your house without you saying them or telling them where to go or what to do. So it's autonomous, right? And it's like kind of like has its own brain or whatever, its own intelligence, even if most of them seem kind of dumb, to be honest, but still, like they're moving around. And this is like the first kind of robot a lot of people have actually at home. So they kind of maybe get used to that, that robots may like do work for us, which we used to have to do ourselves. And I love my vacuum robot, to be honest. It's great. And second part is, of course, what does this mean for the design or creating of digital or physical products? Well, and also for user research. Starting with the research, I think like since 5 years at least, we're talking a lot about big data and like what big data can do for us to get to know our customer base better. And well, it's still like a lot of fuss about it. It's still like kind of a bubble, I think, because a lot of companies, a lot of enterprises still cannot answer the questions which data they actually want to collect. Because it's the first question you have to answer for yourself, like which data do I need? And for answer that, you have to be able to, what would I want to analyze, and which questions do I want to get answered? Because otherwise you just like create amounts of data and you don't do anything with that. So basically it's like taking pictures with your iPhone, you have thousands of them, you never look at more than 2% of them because you don't know what to do with them. So this is a kind of a challenge. And actually, to be honest, also a sustainability question, because even data has to be, or digital data, of course, has to be saved somewhere. So we have a lot of servers which are needed for that, and they need energy. That's just a side quest, but just to make sure, because I think like zero digital waste is also like a big thing. Like not just gathering data for the sake of it, but really what data do we need? And then, of course, I think researchers in the future, 10, 15, 20 years maybe, AI would be able to analyze big amounts of data, but researchers would still be there to train the AI, of course, like how to identify patterns, which really makes insights touchable and actionable. And of course, like AI won't be able, I guess, to do shadowing or qualitative, like really qualitative, create qualitative insights. So I think it's like for researchers, if like from my opinion, if they're going to ask themselves, well, should I learn more about design because something is, usually it's like my insights go to the design team, or should I learn more about like how can I combine big amounts of data and qualitative insights to maybe this one touch points of customer insights in one company? I think this should be the way to go. And for designers, like we were talking about research ops a couple of minutes ago. There's also, of course, design ops. And for design ops, you have to talk about design systems, meaning that you use tools such as Figma or Sketch or in combination, where you create like design patterns, which then can automatically be used to create with all the UI assets you created and the patterns, how the site or the app should look like. They can semi-automatically create new websites based on the patterns you create and the assets you created. So I think this has already started, that it's semi-automatically for the moment. But this, of course, can be 10 years. There might be a hypothesis that designers won't need to create everything from scratch and like really design websites or apps, but be responsible for systems.
As you said, you're using Sketch and Figma, or is it just an example one as a tool, design tool?
Right. This is tools my design team is using. Mm-hmm. So like I think like more or less the industry standard for mm-hmm. now. I think there are much more, but again, like they like have a specified design team, which could be like much better deep dive in there. But yeah, if you use these tools, you're of course using the industry standards for now.
And how do you combine research insights from maybe shadowing or other explorative educational research methods to maybe combine with design tools like Figma or Sketch? Do you have there something? Or do you just Excel it?
No, there's a lot of things happening in between these two stages, right? So I think like the most powerful tool everyone has to use, and it's of course it's very, very or it's got a lot of attention since 2 years, is customer journey mapping, which you can use from a strategic kind of perspective, like for like the whole journey for your product, or you can do micro journey focusing on a specific functionality or features where you're going to do research. And I think this is like the kind of document where you need to gather insights or document the insights and the plan to action. And this is a very dynamic approach, right? Because the customer journey changes whenever you change anything on your product. Because then you create kind of new experiences, and then you have to probably re-ask some questions. And I think this is like just like this tool in the middle where you combine the insights, and for the designers to understand, of course, like what are the biggest kind of opportunities they should start with, or how can they prioritize. And yeah, this is of course like spoken very like not on a deep dive level, but and of course, like there's like many other opportunities or many other possibilities that researchers and designers can speak with. What we usually do, actually, depending on if it's like really about a digital product, we got a lab. So whenever we do like qualitative interviews, for example, and we can do that in the lab or like even now, like virtually, doesn't matter. We have an observation room, and designers attend the research, so they know what like firsthand what the customers like and don't like about the product for now. So this is like even to start with, because and there again, to be honest, working in a consultancy agency environment, and also like meaning that we embrace speed, fastness, and agility. You always think about how lean can it be and how much documentation do I need, depending really on the question. If it's really just we got this new feature and we want to evaluate if it's like working out or how can we improve it, it's like really do the research, designers should attend it, and then just maybe even on the fly improve it without any kind of documentation.
And this customer journey map, is this physical on the wall, or do you have it's digital?
I'm kind of both ways. Like also depending like who's your target group and whom do you wanna work with it. So we got like a lot of good experiences, like really having it printed out physically and putting it into the company's office and doing the meeting in front of it and saying like, well, this is the journey for now, and we're meeting there like every week or every second week, like really talking about the pain points and the product design team wants to tackle in the next sprint.
Okay. You are Director Human-Centered Innovation at Different, a strategy agency. And you see the recent agency you worked for merged with Different this summer. Does it mean that usability and experience design is now stronger than before, implying that it is part of the strategy of companies and should be? I mean, we have talked about it in the research ops topic at least, but is this some visual or a change that implies that this is actually in the top level management of a company and should be there?
Well, I think the challenge here is, and the huge opportunity we have now with this really like with this merge of this different combining this different expertise in like really from strategy to implementing products, is that you have different challenges on the way. Like if we go together on a journey right now, saying like the company enterprise needs to identify new business opportunity, and we identify that, and then like it's all the way designing it, then it's going to be designed, and then it's going to be implemented, and then it's going to be out on the street, and it's going to be continuously improved, right? This is like the very short and best case way of how to create new value. But you have different gates in there. So one of the first gates is you have to identify this new opportunity. Second one is if you identify new opportunities, and new opportunities come typically you need like desirability, feasibility, and viability. You know, like obviously, like this is the Venn diagram you're all gonna use, and this is like really, really basic for everything. And my point of view here is that you have like 3 dimensions where you can start with to create innovations or like new opportunities. And as from a UX perspective or from an experience perspective, you typically start with the desirability because you come from the human kind of thing. If your engineering team coming from the feasibility, you have your business team coming from the viability. And in the end, you need the sweet spot in the middle, like where everything is overlapping to be able to create this new. Mm-hmm. But sorry for the side approach. So the first gate is like to identify this new opportunity. The second one is, and this is just a reality, it's not romantic, but it's a reality, to be able to communicate it in a way internally that you get management buy-in, right? Because they have to think of it, well, this is something actually we should do, we want to do, and this is also something which pays into my KPIs. So I really like have a motivation there. Next gate after this is like finished, you get the management buy-in. They say, well, it's a great idea, let's do that. Then you start the typical UX design process. Well, you have the challenge you want to tackle, you have the problem you want to solve. Then you start iteratively, create designs, validate them, test them, iterate them, and then bring them to your clients. But there's one specific point, and this is like something we can tackle together now. Like really from the first opportunity to designing the product, which means we are not, it's as based on your question, yes, I think it's much stronger because we play a role in creating. At the end, it's all about creating impact, about creating value. And when you have the chance, like really to speak to these different departments and be able to have the expertise to start with in the very beginning and be able to port like everything to the very end, you always can make sure that the idea and the problem you want to solve is still valid, and that the product has a great experience that you're gonna design at the end. Yeah, it's strong.
And I think you're absolutely right, and I think this means also creating innovative products. So the innovation part is actually the interesting one. It's not only visual appearance or experiencing by the product that has already been developed, but also to create new value, to create new experiences, try something new that has never been done before. So I think this is a necessary process that actually needs to be done in every company. So we have, of course, our top 5 questions. And finally, what's your number 1 experience design or research book?
Perfect. I just want to add one thing, if I'm allowed to.
Sure, go ahead.
Because it's just it really just triggered something in me. And it's really based on, for now, as my title says, I'm Director of Human-Centered Innovation. And I don't want to make a fuss about innovation too much. Because for me, innovation is something which is most of the time it's combining existing ideas and existing products in wildly combining them, iterating them, and just putting them into a new context. And then it's then you get something new, which basically innovation means. It's something new. And also the second part is I just held a talk on the crisis of innovation, and I just had to think about it. Because for me, it's one gate which I just talked about is that if you have these new opportunities, the idea of an innovation, and we don't have, no company has the problem of less that they have not enough ideas, right? All the companies have smart people working there. They have a lot of ideas. They have a lot of potential for innovation. But in my experience, the most for innovation, most of the time are dying because they don't get the internal hurdle of management attention, because the idea is great, but it just is not something that pays into the KPIs of the stakeholders. So it's a systematic problem sometimes, to be honest, and I see that as a pattern really in the last 10 years. But it's something it's kind of hard to bring the idea to life sometimes. And this is the biggest gap I think you have to tackle. And that's why, as I said before, it's great for experienced people to be able to speak business, because then you have much more arguments on your side.
I guess that's the reason why bigger companies, enterprises are like creating innovation labs so that those hurdles you talked about can be managed within a small group of creative people and using, for example, design thinking methods or all other methods you talked about. So I think this is a very important one. So what's your number one book?
Number one book, I mean, depending on your stage in your career, obviously. I mean, there's like a lot of books out there.
Right now,
I think it's Mapping Experiences from Jim Kalbach.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great book. Always recommend it.
Number one experience design research resource can be a blog, podcast.
I always liked UX Mag, so UX Magazine, because it's always something to read. It doesn't matter how many times you have. This is always a go-to for me.
Number one experience design research person you follow.
This is a biggie, but I think at the end it was quite clear for me it's gonna be Don Norman. I mean, the inventor of, or the one who framed the term user experience in the first place. And he's like still, I think he's in his 80s now, but really guys follow him on LinkedIn or whatever. He still does great opportunities on our society, on experience design itself, and how enterprises can evolve.
Number one user research methodology or method. We heard one, we heard two. Choose one.
I think it's customer journey mapping, because it's like this puzzle piece in the middle of things. So it's like the greatest tool I can think of.
Number one skill a human experience designer or researcher must have.
Again, we talked about that, but I'm really sure it's really this. Everyone has empathy, because otherwise they won't be in this profession. So it's really the communication skills and be able to translate insights to business actions, design and business actions. I think this is like the number one skill on our perspective for experienced designers and researchers.
Tim, thank you very much. It was an honor to speak with you. It was great experience. Thanks.
Thank you so much for having me and sharing this Friday morning with me. It was my pleasure.